Welcome to this special episode of Nerd on Nerd with me, Jack Kempster.
And me, Liam Underwood. And this episode, if you haven't guessed from the title, is all about Doctor Strange, the latest movie in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Just a quick note to everyone listening to this. This is going to be full of spoilers, so if you haven't seen the film, and you want to, turn this off. It's not for you.
No, don't turn it off. Just pause it, go watch the film, come back, and then listen.
I'm worried that they might have heard me say turn it off, Liam, and now they've turned it off, and they didn't hear you say just pause it.
Entirely possible. Entirely possible.
Shit.
But shall we jump straight into it?
I think we should, yep.
So, Doctor Strange, to give a very quick synopsis, it's basically about a sort of brilliant surgeon who gets involved in a car accident, then has sort of messed up nerves and stuff and his hands can't stop shaking, so
Yep.
there goes his surgery career, and he decides to seek healing in Nepal? What is it? Tibet?
Just Nepal.
Nepal.
And I don't even know if it's Kathmandu that he goes to, isn't it? But then it's a
Yeah.
place called the Kamar Taj.
He goes to this mystical place where he meets the Ancient One, and the Ancient One shows him that there's more to this world than meets the eye. I think that
Very good, Liam.
Yeah, that does.
Yeah,
that
it's
does
a
it,
good
doesn't
little,
it?
good little synopsis there.
Thank you. Because we don't want another fucking civil war where we just go through it beat by beat.
Yep.
So let's just start with a couple of stats, if you don't mind.
Sure, you know I love stats. That was sarcasm.
This is the 14th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Oh, I love it. I can't wait for them to do more.
This is the 6th comic book movie released in the UK, at least, in 2016.
I wish we could have 6 more, honestly.
And it's the 7th origin film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
I'm really glad that they're establishing the origins of all their characters, because it means that their later films just make so much more sense.
So, with those stats, kind of bearing those in mind,
Yep.
I think it's fair to be apprehensive that Doctor Strange is going to bring something new to the Marvel table.
How do you mean?
So, basically, I feel like the entire point of this movie is just to establish magic in the Marvel universe.
Yeah.
That's
It's doing
it.
that, it's like, because you know how Thor was their sort of dipping their toe in, because they had all the tech hero, you know,
Yeah.
they had Iron Man, and then Thor was kind of their test of the, like, oh, maybe it's a bit fantasy too.
Yeah.
This one's their, like, yeah, it's fantasy.
Yeah, it's very magical.
Yeah.
What did you think of it, Jack? Like, overall...
I enjoyed it.
Yeah?
It's not, you know, it's not the best Marvel film I've ever seen.
No.
It's not going to, you know, go down in the history books as Marvel's greatest film, but I think it's a good film.
Okay.
You?
I thought it was very average. If anything, maybe a tad disappointing.
Okay.
And here's why.
How? Alright, yeah.
So, when Marvel take risks, I'm sure I've said this before, but I'm happy to repeat it. When Marvel take risks, generally it goes very well. I feel like the first Avengers movie was a risk. Like, I don't know, for me at least, I was very concerned with that movie about how it could even work with all those characters on screen at once and giving each one, you know, it worked.
Totally agree. It was, it's like because that's what everyone was saying before, weren't they? Like,
Yeah.
how are they going to have all these big characters have their own place in this film?
Yeah, and Avengers, the first movie, totally works excellently. Probably my favourite Marvel Cinematic movie.
Yeah, it's fair to say.
I'd say the next huge risk... Obviously, the biggest risk they ever did was Iron Man, the first Iron Man.
Yes.
So then the next one I'd say after Avengers would be Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yep.
And then I'd even say Ant-Man was a bit of a risk, particularly with the casting of Paul Rudd.
Yeah, no, I get that.
And
because that was like their first foray into... Because all the films have that comedy element,
Yeah.
but Ant-Man is sort of,
Well,
you know, the most... Although Guardians of the Galaxy is a huge comedy one.
yeah, no, it is. I think what Ant-Man does best is not only is it an origin story, but it's something else. And I think that's when Marvel works best, when it's a comic book movie and something else. So, Guardians of the Galaxy, great comic book movie, also great, like, sci-fi, space team-uppy type movie.
Yeah, yeah.
Ant-Man, great origin story, but also good, like, heist movie.
Yeah, that's fair.
With Doctor Strange, I don't think it had that and something else.
No, it's very much an origin story of Doctor Strange.
Yes, and it very
The
much...
the stuff that could have been the other thing, you know, like the big interdimensional space monster thing.
Yeah.
Like that didn't get played as much as it could have.
No, and I think some of the strongest stuff in Doctor Strange was some of the more trippy sequences, like when he first like astral projects. And...
Yeah, that scene. So this is probably going to come up later, but I'd like to say it now because we're talking about that scene. But I saw this film in 2D, and I wish I'd seen it in 3D for that scene and for the city bending scenes.
I went with my other half, Kat, and she can't stand 3D, so I'll probably just wait for it to come out on 3D Blu-ray and watch it in 3D then. But
I said to you before, didn't I? I said to you, "Oh, I think it's going to be good in 3D."
Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, no, and there's definitely a few scenes that you can see that working well.
Yeah.
But I think this is the thing. It was that trippy stuff that this should have been that bit. It should have been like a Marvel movie with this kind of really weird trippy vibe to it. But they only...
Yeah, I don't know if that could have been the secondary plot. I don't know.
The thing is...
that's a cool effect.
It is, but they only...
I don't think I could have put up with it if the whole film was that. Or not the whole film, but huge chunks. Like, if the final fight against the monster was all in a trippy dimension where everything was, you know, fucking him flying into outer space and then going into port, I don't think I could have dealt with that. I'd have been like, what are they trying to do?
I think it would have depended a lot on how they pulled it off, but I think there was definitely potential from what we saw. Like, I was left wanting more of that.
Yeah, no, that's fair. Yeah.
Because it did feel like they dipped their toes into that water, but they really didn't fully commit to it. I didn't think it was it almost felt a bit experimental. They were like, well, look, this is what we can do, but you're only getting a little glimpse because we kind of don't think that, like you said, we don't think it would work much more than this. Maybe.
Yeah. I think it also felt a lot like how Avatar, when that came out, was sort of them testing 3D and being like, what can we achieve with 3D?
Yeah.
Like, can we make this beautiful film? This felt a lot like Marvel being like, how good are... It almost felt like they'd gone to a visual effects team and been like, how cool can we make this?
Yeah, I get that. And I do think when you compare it to other Marvel films, it does have its own kind of unique fingerprint. When it comes to that element, at least, there's a lot of it that to me felt very samey, very much like, oh, I've seen this, I know what to expect from this. It was kind of like, it felt almost pedestrian in the way it was shot and directed outside of that cool stuff.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
Directed by Scott Derrickson, let me start with the positives. I think that is a good, interesting choice for director. Like, he's kind of best known for horror.
Yeah, I don't really know him.
So he's directed Sinister, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and one of the straight-to-video Hellraiser sequels, Inferno, as well as a couple of other things.
I've seen The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Okay, but so, you know, that's very much like his film history is grounded in horror.
Yeah, it's a horror-based director.
Which does make him, like, a bold choice for this sort of movie, which is definitely more fantastical than horrific, I'd say.
Yeah.
So that was good, and we've already mentioned that like the trippy stuff was good, but I kind of am already starting to run out of stuff I thought was good.
Really, I liked the big bad guy.
Mads Mikkelsen.
The big bad guy.
The guy that we saw for maybe 2-3 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's like only because it's like, you know, a sort of staple of Marvel, the comic books. Like, if you think about Fantastic Four and you've got Galactus, the Devourer of Worlds, I think it's cool that we're getting some of these, you know, because that's a potential that thing could easily come back at some point. And they've established that there are these sort of giant threats that exist, which I like.
Yeah. I think the other thing that is interesting that this film does is it unlocks, they even talk about it, it unlocks the potential of the multiverse.
Yeah.
Which you could then use Doctor Strange if Marvel wanted to, and I really don't think they would, but if they wanted to, they could definitely like do these one-off movies that could just be part of a different parallel universe. Like, just as an example, if they ever wanted to do like Marvel Zombies with the MCU, this is their way into that.
Yeah, that's true. I was going to be like, oh, I don't think they would, but you mentioning Marvel Zombies,
yeah,
I could see someone being like, that's, you know, one of our popular franchises.
Yeah, and I think it would be such a cool idea, and also really open up Marvel creatively to be able to dabble in these like one-off stories where the consequences of what happens doesn't really matter because it doesn't actually affect like the MCU as we know it, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I think that the worry with it would be I don't want it to become how it is in the comic books, where these sort of expand, multiverses.
Yeah.
They always end up just being an excuse for them to like undo something they fucked up.
Yeah, no, I wouldn't want that. I would want it to be just a way for them to be a bit more experimental than they have been, because I really feel like, and this is my biggest complaint with Marvel, they play it too safe. Like, even in this movie, at no point, it was typical Marvel, where it's like the stakes are high, essentially the whole world is at stake, but at no point did I feel like there was actually any real palpable threats. Like,
they almost could have done with more. Like, so how he uses that sort of time travel thing at the end?
Yeah.
And he unwinds that tiny area that the thing's breaking through.
Yeah.
They could have almost done with having that whole bit be longer, where the monster actually takes over a bigger chunk of the world.
Yeah.
Or, like, not the world, but of that city, perhaps. See a bit of what could happen, as opposed to just, he's broken through the last thing. Don't worry, I'll rewind time.
Yeah, and you have just raised a point that really did bother me in a bit. Like, it not bother me, but it irked me, in that earlier in the film, he's messing around with this time thing, and he's basically told, don't do that. If you do that, there's going to be dire consequences, so definitely do not mess with time. And at the end of the film, he's like, well, I'm going to save the day by messing with time, and there's like zero consequences to it.
Yeah, but no. So I think the reason that is that's not meant to be them saying if you mess with time, bad stuff happens, right? I think it's them saying there's the potential for bad stuff to happen if you fuck with the time stream. But I think it was more to emphasize. What's the guy's name? Modor? What was his name?
His friend.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, Modor.
So I think it was more to emphasize Modor's character, because you have that whole scene where Tilda Swinton, the Ancient One, is saying you're the, like, you've got your ability and all this stuff, and you've got Modor's like grounding to keep you. So I think that was more to establish that that's how Modor felt, and Wong just being Wong.
I get that, but so here's what I just feel is a bit odd about it is very much it's very typical in movies, right? Where it'll be like early in the film, here's a warning. Later in the film, that warning plays out, and it just felt odd that they were like warning, and then we're going to do it anyway, and the warning doesn't play out.
But I mean, it might not play out in this film.
But maybe
with the way
later.
Marvel, like the fact that just because we know that Marvel, a lot of their storylines do play out in other films. Do you know what I mean?
And I actually
like their stuff, the stuff that was about the Avengers, that's going to play out in the Avengers, not in Iron Man, sort of thing.
Yeah. How did you feel about?
I know what you're saying, though. I do get what you're saying.
Okay, yeah. How did you feel about the like throwaway mentions to the Avengers? Like, there's a line where. I think again it's Mordo or someone says no, it's not. It's Wong. He says the Avengers protect us from more physical threats, and us like gatekeepers more spiritual or something.
Yeah.
How did you feel about that sort of?
I like that they're not. I like that these films don't pretend they aren't part of a universe.
Yeah, it just sometimes.
But I think the more interesting ones.
It feels
like. Did you notice right at the beginning when he's in the car, he gets a call from someone that says, we've got a really urgent case, which he declines.
Yeah.
And it's Rhodes.
No, it's not.
Which is... What?
It's not.
It is.
No, it's not Rhodes.
He says Rhodes.
No, he doesn't.
He does. He 100% says Rhodes.
No, he doesn't.
What does he say then?
So, okay, so again, this comes up in the IMDb trivia. Because that beginning section takes place several years before, or maybe not several years, but at a time before the majority of the film, right? When I was reading up, what he was saying is the person that references to is one of the characters from Iron Man 3, I believe it is.
Okay.
Not right, because when I first watched it, I 100% thought it was Rhodes.
Yeah, I'm sure, because he says something. It must be something that sounds fucking similar to that then.
Let me...
Because he literally says, if not Rhodes, he says something fucking close, because the guy says, it's whatever Rhodes.
Right, I don't know where I saw this.
And he says he's in an experimental suit. He literally says he was in an experimental military suit and he hurt his back.
Okay, in the IMDb trivia, it is now saying it's a reference to James Rhodes, but
he
else...
says James Rhodes 100%. Liam, you're wrong, my friend. He says James Rhodes, and they say he was in an experimental military suit.
Right. Yes. Okay. Here we go. So it says here the three cases that he describes. Blah blah blah. Yeah, like you said, one is it says a Marine colonel with a crushed lower spine. And the exact quote they've got here: "I've got a 35-year-old Marine colonel crushed his lower spine in some kind of experimental armour." And even this website here is saying they've immediately thought it was Colonel James from Civil War, but because the age of the Marine doesn't match up with that of Rhodey, what they're saying is it's probably an Iron Man reference from Iron Man 2, which saw Justin Hammer using Marines to test out his failed Hammer versions of the Iron Man suits. Now, I feel like that's a bit of a deep cut. I reckon it's a
mistake.
Yeah,
I reckon it's a mistake that they've made on timelines. Or, it's either Marvel have fucked up the timeline slightly and it definitely was a Rhodes. I think it's 100% it was a Rhodes reference.
It makes more sense. Like, when I first saw it, that's what I thought. And it was only, reading afterwards that I saw that. I was like, oh, maybe I was wrong. But it to me, suddenly referencing Iron Man 2 just feels a bit too deep.
Exactly. Exactly.
Especially
I think it's got to be Rhodes, and they've just either messed up or because I don't know. Do we know how long he was seeking treatment?
We don't know
because they don't ever. So. I don't remember them specifying.
No, it might have been in my back of my mind. I've got 6 months for some reason, but I don't know if that's right or not.
Yeah, maybe because we don't know. Yeah, I think it could be a reference to Civil War.
That just makes more sense, right? It makes more sense,
and I don't think it's a mistake either. Maybe
it makes more sense for them to reference a film that came out earlier this year than to reference a film that came out a few years ago.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
But again, I think this is one of those things where because everything is connected, it doesn't really matter. You know that it's basically alluding to the wider world.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Back to your original point.
Yeah,
I like the fact that they do these
sort
of references.
That sort of reference works. Like the Stark Tower, when you see the shot of the skyline.
Yeah.
Fine. I always find it just a little bit awkward when it comes up in dialogue because it never feels natural.
I didn't particularly feel it didn't feel wrong when they said the Avengers look after the physical world.
Fair enough.
I don't know. I understand your point.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think they deal with it well.
Okay.
Maybe they could have done it a better way, but I wasn't yanked out of the film particularly.
That's fair. So sticking with for now the good stuff. Is there anything else you want to include in what you liked?
I mean, I don't know. I like the way they established the magic and the kind of the rules of it.
Okay.
Like, I always like, it's not fully established. Like, we don't fully know how the magic works.
No, very deliberately but I think.
Yeah, but I always hate it when films use magic as like it can do whatever you want.
Yeah.
Bullshit. Whereas this is very much like you can sort of see what their limits are.
I did feel a little bit like the film was kind of restrained in that when it showed the magic in action, it had to do it obviously in a very visual way, and I feel like particularly the fights, the magical laced fight scenes where you've got Mads Mikkelsen's character had this weird gluey spear thing, and you had Doctor Strange with his little orange shields.
Yeah.
I just kind of felt like, right, if you've got all of magic at your disposal, why would you go for little orange shields and stuff? I
think that's because they say earlier on when he's talking about the relics, when Modor's talking about the relics,
yeah,
and he says there are spells. We've got all these spells that can do everything.
Yeah,
but if it's we can't control most of them or a lot of the big ones, so we have to tie them to objects.
So I get that, and I'm assuming that's what the cloak that levitates and stuff is kind of
one of those. Yeah,
it just to
that
me
is a relic.
Yeah, I think the magic fight scenes felt bizarrely almost unimaginative once you'd seen the first one. When they did more, so the movie starts with a kind of fighty scene, and it kind of almost shoots its load too early, because in that opening scene you get the very visually impressive buildings all moving and stuff, and you also get the weird little orange shields and bolts and stuff. And
I think is it possible that it's more so because it's all sort of based more on the idea of monks and stuff.
Yeah.
Right. So is it possible that because they're having this whole focusing thing and learning to fight in a martial arts style, this is me totally coming up with a reason off the top of my head.
Yeah.
This isn't based on anything. Right. That's how I'm sort of viewing it. Is that it's more the magic isn't when you become a mage or a wizard.
Yeah.
In this world, you're not some ultimate power. I can do spells. It's more a way of focusing your mind and all that stuff, and it adds this slight layer of magic, which is why they're all using thin whips and stuff as opposed to blasting fire.
Entirely possible. I just feel like if you have magic at your disposal, they could have done a couple of more visually interesting and different things to what we saw in the opening, to just keep repeating that for every fight scene when you've got, like, you know, it's not like they're restrained. Like with Iron Man, there's only so much he can do with his suit, right? Same with Hulk. There's only so much Hulk smashing he can do. But you've got magic here. It doesn't have to be the same thing.
Fine. Yeah, no, but it does. Because you can't have... That's where things go wrong, is when they go, we've got magic and it can do anything. Because then, like, how do you then integrate Doctor Strange into any other... It's the same issue that... And I'm not dissing DC films at this point. I'm just talking about Superman in general.
Yeah.
It's the same issue you've got where Superman is in a film with someone else. Because no matter what, you've got... Why doesn't Superman... Superman is this incredible creature.
Yeah.
Why do we need the other people? Do you know what I mean? Like, they'll in a film, it will definitely make sense. But afterwards, you can sort of look back and be like, but Superman's got super speed and, like, fucking laser eyes. So why does Green Lantern need to be there? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean...
It's too... It gives... I think it's more of a roadblock to them if they make magic this totally incredible thing.
Right. It doesn't have to be, like, you know, we can do anything with it, but they could have done more than just repeating what we saw in the first 5 minutes. That's what I'm saying. Like, they could have just done a couple of different magical, like, weapons or maneuvers or whatever, or maybe even open with something different, because it really just feel like once you've seen that first 5 minute sequence, beyond like the trippy stuff, take that to one side, you've seen all of the impressive visual effects stuff that they're doing in all of the fight scenes following.
Yeah, but it gets amped.
I don't know if I buy that.
But it does. That first scene,
yeah.
You get... So in the first scene, you get
the
2 or 3
one,
gravity shifts.
You get the Ancient One versus like a group of people, yeah.
But they haven't... So the other people haven't got their darkness power yet.
Yeah.
So you get the gravity shifts, where she flips the world on its side.
Yeah.
And you get her putting them into the mirror world, where she's doing that.
Yeah.
Right? And then later on, you've got, when they get their darkness power, their abilities inside the mirror world, they like they turn the world into like multiple different planetoids covered in buildings, as opposed to where she just shifts it on its side effectively.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
I mean, if yeah,
I get what you're saying.
Yeah,
I agree to an extent.
Yeah,
I'm just, you know,
so I
get why they did it.
Yeah, I think what you're trying to say is you're happy with it, whereas for me, I just feel like they could have done a bit more.
Yeah, fair enough.
But yeah, as far as like other good things, I have nothing else.
No, nothing.
I'm afraid not.
I liked the scenes where Doctor Strange was getting saved by the nurse. I can't remember her name.
Rachel McAdams.
Yeah, no,
Christine.
The
Is it Christine?
Yes.
Okay.
I liked those scenes where he was astral projecting.
Yeah.
To her.
I mean, one of the things I should point out is, while I do say now that I can't think of anything else good, as we discuss, that might change.
Yeah, fair enough.
So you like that stuff. Anything else that you like? What about the humour in this? Did you think that worked?
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. That sort of bit, to me, was a sort of humorous-y bit, because you've got him sort of just suddenly appearing and her trying to deal with the fact that her ex-lover is now a fucking master mage.
Yeah, she seemed to accept it very quickly.
I think she was in shock.
Yeah.
More than anything else.
Yeah, there was a couple of comedy moments that did work, particularly that scene and kind of the aftermath of that scene, like when he sort of travels back to wherever it is that he's going.
And she's just left standing in a cupboard.
Yeah, with the mop that falls over.
Yes.
I feel like that's probably the strongest comedy stuff. The whole stuff with him trying to make Wong laugh didn't really work for me.
I liked it.
Okay.
It wasn't the most funny thing, but I liked the cut back to him listening to Beyonce.
Okay, fair enough. Anything else?
Not that I can think of off the top of my head.
Maybe when we start discussing our/my complaints, we'll get to other good stuff that we liked.
Yeah, we'll see.
Maybe. So, do you have any complaints first?
I mean, I probably do, but I haven't,
sat and thought about it.
Yeah, I'm not like you. As in, I don't plan for the podcast. Well, yeah, hey!
Exactly. Okay, so let me start with my most obvious and biggest complaint, which I've already mentioned before. It's another Marvel movie. You know what you're getting, and, you know, beside what we've already mentioned, I don't think it really did offer anything new. And after watching this movie, I think I've figured out my biggest gripe with Marvel.
Go on.
Okay, I don't want to go too far into comparing with DC, so I'm just going to touch the surface, right?
Okay.
But I think for me, a lot of it comes down to casting. So,
right,
to give you an idea of what I'm talking about, Ben Affleck cast as Batman, I fucking love that announcement, and I know, online, it was super controversial, and there's a lot of people that were unhappy with it. And, you know,
Yeah.
they were proven wrong. Margot Robbie as Harley Quinn, I would have never thought of that personally, and that worked spectacularly. Even Will Smith as Deadshot, I think, was kind of a bold bit of casting. Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, etc., etc., you get my point. Then when we look at Doctor Strange, so Benedict Cumberbatch plays an intellectually gifted but emotionally shut-off character, like Sherlock, or like his character in The Imitation Game. And then you've got Mads Mikkelsen, you know, the villain from Casino Royale, and plays Hannibal in Hannibal, playing the villain in Doctor Strange. Like, the casting itself is so predictable that you...
I don't think that's fair to say about Doctor Strange, mate.
Well, it's what
because
I'm saying.
Because you specifically brought up the controversy of Ben Affleck being cast as Batman, right?
Yes.
So this film casts in a series that originally had an Asian ancient mystic.
Yeah.
Where they cast a female white lady,
which they were then accused of whitewashing. Yeah.
Yeah, which wasn't then true because they also hired Chiwetel Ejiofor.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
As whose character was originally white, I believe, or possibly Asian.
I don't know any of the I know one of the things we should have said very early on is I have zero familiarity with the source of this.
Yeah, I also do, but I'd seen this stuff around, and had then read on it, and I've read what they said about these casting choices.
Yeah.
And they were basically the reason they cast Tilda Swinton.
Yes.
They said.
Yes.
So what I don't know how true it is, but this is what they've said. Is something along the lines of, if they had cast the character as an old Asian man, they would have been accused of racism for playing up to all the stereotypes of the Asian kung fu master.
And there's even a scene.
So they said they were stuck between a rock and a hard place.
And there's even a scene where they play on that trope, where when you first meet the Ancient One, and Benedict Cumberbatch mistakes him completely for, as you say, like an old Asian man. Yeah. So they do play with that.
And then like Wong as well, right? So the character of Wong in the original comics is apparently more like a butler to Strange. And they were like, we're not going to do that because that's like horribly racist.
Yeah.
So instead they turned him into one of the masters and just gave him a different role. But kept it an Asian guy. So
here's the thing.
So when you say, they took risks with Batman, they took risks with Doctor Strange.
I'll give you this. Tilda Swinton is the Ancient One. Sure, I'll let you have that. It's risky. I'm personally not a huge fan of her. I think she was fine in this movie, but like a lot of people go crazy for her, and I
But what's the risk? All right, but what's the risk of Ben Affleck as Batman? What's the actual risk? There's not a risk. That's we're going to hire an actor who plays heroes. You can't say, that Marvel hire classic villain actors to play villains when your bloody fucking love child DC just hire famous people that play good guys to play good guys.
I mean, Jesse Eisenberg as like possibly one of the biggest DC villains is not a call I would have made. And I know a lot of people didn't like
very
him.
Good. There's one thing that DC have done. Will Smith plays the misunderstood good guy who really loves his family. Oh, Will Smith, I can't believe you'd play a character that loves your family.
That's also insane. Playing a villain, though. I feel like you're missing that
point. No, he's not, though, because the whole point of that movie is that he sort of learns to be a good guy.
Does he, though? Because he is still an assassin
that's literally the point of that film, Liam, I reckon, is that Deadshot is... Because that character... And guess what, Liam? That trope of Deadshot maybe being a good guy, that isn't even invented by that goddamn film. That was done in Flash and Arrow, where they have Deadshot, and they have the redemption of Deadshot, where you find out that he's a loving father who, genuinely doesn't like killing people, but was driven to it by whatever happened to him. Boom! Your DC films are not original. They're not that experimental. Get over it.
I honestly don't think the whole point of Suicide Squad is Deadshot is a good guy.
No, but you're meant to have the redemption of Deadshot, where you find out that he's a loving dad, and the reason he doesn't shoot Batman in that one scene is because his daughter's there. He's trying to be a good guy.
Okay, fine. I'm just saying,
Liam, that's a very classic Will Smith character.
I would disagree personally, but I see where you're coming from.
Yeah, I'm just saying that you can't make these comparisons and say that. I think both are being just as adventurous as each other, which is not very.
I
don't think DC are as adventurous as you think.
That's fine.
Yeah, but that's because your opinion of DC is you think they're still building up to something, which they're not.
We don't know that.
Yes, we do.
How do we know that?
Because they've done so many fucking films now, and none of them have been the big reveal that they keep fucking promising is coming.
In the actual DC movie universe, they've done 3 films.
Yeah, and each one of them was not even relevant to the DC universe. They just made a film because they were like, Guardians of the Galaxy did well, let's do a team and have them be funny.
Wait, what are you talking about now?
That's Suicide Squad.
Right, so you think they did Suicide Squad just because of Guardians of the Galaxy?
Not just because of, but I think they saw how well Guardians of the Galaxy did and went, okay, cool, we can definitely do our Suicide Squad movie now.
Okay, that's fair. I
mean, you can't disagree that the Justice League movie that is coming out is because Avengers did well. DC were happy doing separate films that didn't tie together.
100%. The Justice League is entirely because of the Avengers.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure.
I will admit that my Suicide Squad stretch is more of a stretch, yes.
Yeah.
I'm making a point.
But also, I mean, I think this is the other thing with Marvel, right? Like I said, this is the 14th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So, you look at any film series that's gone on that long, the fact that this movie is, for me at least, only average and not bad is still impressive.
Yeah. But I think that's part of the fact that they're not, like, as opposed to most films where it's sequels that get dragged out.
Yeah.
Because the Marvel films just tie together, they're not actually like I think that's part of why they're not
it's as bad. Yeah.
If this was, Iron Man 14, I think we'd all be hating it.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, to go back to my point, for me, and I think this is where Marvel are almost clinging a little bit too tightly, is we can all agree that Robert Downey Jr. is probably the best person they could have cast for Tony Stark. But the reason why he's the best is in its obviousness. Like, I feel like he brings so much of himself to that character.
Yeah.
Which is, that's entirely fine, and I applaud Marvel for that decision. But when you then just carry on casting safely, and I'll admit, they don't always do it. Like, again, Paul Rudd in Ant-Man, that was a bold choice. Chris Pratt in Guardians of the Galaxy, a bold choice. But Benedict Cumberbatch in this, to me, not a bold choice. And again, I feel like with this film, you had two incredibly, potentially interesting villains, and both of them were severely shortchanged. Yeah. And that is just a recurring issue I have with Marvel, is that they don't give their villains enough time to really, grab your attention. So I think we could probably both agree on the best comic book movie, right? Probably going to agree that it's The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
And I genuinely feel like the reason why it's the best is because you've got pretty much equal time devoted to both Batman and the Joker.
Yeah.
And that film entirely understands how important it is to build up your villain. So when your hero does go against him, it makes it so much more interesting because you get both perspectives of that fight.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. Yeah. But my issue is, I don't know if you're trying to say that that's just Marvel's problem.
No, I'm not saying it's just Marvel's problem. I'm
saying that's when I find issue, is when you love DC and hate these Marvel films.
No, I'm not.
But that's fine, because DC also have not been able to do this since...
Yeah. Like, as I said to you, Suicide Squad, the biggest complaint for me of that movie was the villain.
Yeah.
So here, with Doctor Strange, when you have an actor as high caliber as Mads Mikkelsen, give him more screen time. Like, give him a more layered villain. Like, I entirely get his villainous plan. He wanted to be immortal. Understand that. But it's a very one-note character, if that's just his motivation. And they do try to explain it. They're like, oh, well, he had like a wife and child or something that died, and that's why he's searching for immortality. Like, they try to justify it, but it's just like dialogue that's thrown away. It's not an actual focal point in the movie, like I feel like it should be for that villain to work. And that's just that one villain. Then you've got the villain, I don't even know his name, it's like Adagigi Booga, or whatever you want to call him.
I don't think it's that.
Do you know who I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Dormammu.
Yeah. What an interesting concept for a villain. And so shortchanged. Like, as we said, 3 minutes pretty much, and it's dealt with. If anything...
I do hate that.
If anything, and you probably disagree, I almost wonder if this film would have been better if that had been the main villain, and we just dropped the Mads Mikkelsen stuff, and we just have some sort of scenario where you still have all of the backstory of Doctor Strange and that, and then as he goes in for his training, that big villain comes along, and suddenly like, shit, we need all the help we can get to stop this from happening.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think as well, right, they could have done with more of the... Because there's a scene where Doctor Strange is talking to the bad guy.
Yeah.
And they're having this discussion, and it's almost like the way he's presenting his points to Doctor Strange is sort of convincing Strange that maybe he's not this evil character.
Yes.
And then he just gets attacked, and that's it. And I really would have loved it if half the film... Not half. If a big chunk of the film was Strange being super suspicious of the Ancient One.
Yeah, that would have been really
which
good.
they do for like 5 minutes. They have Doctor Strange is suspicious of her, then he sees her as she's dying, and she's like, "No, I'm good, don't worry." And he's like, "Oh, okay, yeah, she's a good guy."
Yeah, I entirely agree. Again, though, this I think more so than DC does come back to the Marvel issue where Marvel is very black and white. The only grey villain, and probably their best villain, is Loki.
I mean, he's not exactly grey.
The greyest of the villains. Like
in the cinematic universe.
Yeah, the vast majority are very black and white. It's very much like,
But
I'm the bad guy.
But you
they're the
say
good guys.
that's Marvel. What DC characters were great? The Suicide Squad.
Yeah,
Is that what you're saying?
yeah.
They're not great though.
They are.
Only Deadshot and Diablo, I think, were particularly great. Killer Croc's not grey. Harley
No.
Quinn's not grey.
No.
They only do the stuff they're
Joker.
doing because they have bombs on their necks.
Joker's
None
not
of
grey.
these characters are grey.
I'm thinking of other villains that we've seen in the DC cinematic universe so far.
They nearly did it. I will admit, they nearly did it with Lex Luthor, because that was one of my big issues with Batman vs Superman, was how obviously evil he was at the end when they did the whole, oh, he's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I thought that was such a bullshit cop-out to an interesting character.
Yeah, that's true. So, yeah, okay.
So I think that's just an issue that comic book movies are having at the moment.
I agree.
My sort of hope is that the Deadpool 18 rating and, I don't know what age rating Logan is. Do we know yet?
They're gunning for... over here it'll probably be a 15 like Deadpool was, to be fair. But in America it'll be an R rating.
But that's... So, like, my sort of hope is that when they focus on films like that and they realise they can be edgier and sort of more dark... I know Deadpool doesn't necessarily do it, because Deadpool's more a comedy.
Yeah.
But Logan has the potential to be, I don't know,
edgy
more
at least.
interesting in that respect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what it is. I feel like it's when they're downplaying to get these lower ratings,
Yeah.
they're having to cut what could potentially... Because that's when, weirdly, that's when things seem greyer to me, or when they are more violent and sort of...
Yeah, no, definitely. I think at the end of the day, what you don't get with these movies and what's almost missing, and I think a large part of the Marvel at least is because it's owned by Disney,
Yeah.
is that they dabbled in Iron Man 3 when he was having the post-traumatic stress. What you don't get is actually seeing these heroes coming to terms with the fact that, like, you look at Captain America, he has straight up, maybe not necessarily murdered, but severely injured quite a few people by this point in the MCU.
Yeah.
And sure, they're bad people, but I think, if you wanted to make that hero interesting, or more interesting, you would have him kind of grappling with that, where he's like, right, I'm striving to be this good thing, but to do that, I do have to do these questionable things. Like, that person that I just potentially killed, if not at least massively injured, could have a family.
Yeah.
And I think...
It's weird, because that is sort of the traditional Marvel comic book thing.
Yeah.
Like when you look at The Secret Avengers, when that was a thing after Civil War.
Yeah.
And that had a lot of, like, you had Mr. Marvel dealing with the fact that his whole backstory, like the original backstory they'd written for the comics, was that he was, like, part of this testing.
Yeah.
And got made into this superhero. And then in that one you find out that actually he was a thief who stole the drugs and basically got addicted to them.
Yeah.
And, like, so that, like, traditionally, and, like, fucking all the Iron Man stuff, like, he's been an alcoholic in the comic books and dealing with that for years.
Yeah, I mean, I still say, like, I'll never do it, but Genie in the Bottle would be an amazing Iron Man movie if they had the balls to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it is weird. It's weird that they don't translate that to the screen for some reason.
And I do genuinely feel like it's probably because they're now owned by Disney, and they've also always got one eye on the merchandise.
But Disney have that Disney own the comic books as well now.
But they obviously, when we're talking some of these storylines, they wouldn't have, would they? Like,
no, that's true. But, like, I don't know. Like, I don't know. I'm reluctant to blame it on Disney, because I think Disney get a bad rap for owning stuff. Like, everyone, when they bought Star Wars, was like, oh, they're going to ruin it.
Yeah, and Force Awakens was
so I
very
feel like
good.
Disney get this unfair hate.
Yeah,
like, fair enough if they'd done something to make us hate it, but I've not been upset with them particularly.
No, I feel like, yeah, it's probably the most obvious scapegoat if you're trying to look at why is it that these films are this way.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's most frustrating of being a fan of comic book movies. When you've got such a rich amount of backstory to pull from, when you do get what feels like a watered down version, and X-Men's a perfect example with everything they've done with Wolverine, he always feels like they're holding him back from what he should be doing.
Yeah.
It is frustrating. because you know that the ingredients are there for an amazing film, but for whatever reason, be it they're trying to target a family audience or merchandise, or whatever reason, it's frustrating that they're not kind of nutting up and doing it to the greatest potential. Like it's like that. Obviously, filmmaking is a business, and they've got one eye on also trying to make as much money as possible. But it would be so refreshing to see them do like a Deadpool type thing, where they take a lower budget but have much more creative freedom to make the movie they want to make.
I don't even think you don't need the lower budget. It's just the freedom.
Yeah, that's what
they
I think
need to
is
get
missing.
a director on and say, look, we just trust you to do what you want.
That is 100% not only the problem with Marvel, but also the problem with DC, is they're not letting the directors do what the directors
because I think that is most of my issues with the DC stuff. Usually you can sort of, like, or you'll see in the news that the reason something that I didn't like happened was because the studio stepped in and said, right.
Yes, exactly. And
we want
that is the one complaint that I will 100% agree with you when it comes to DC stuff. That and also Martha. Like, I can't defend Martha. I'm sorry.
No, I don't think anyone can defend Martha.
Yeah. So, back to Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Fun fact. Again, this came from the IMDb trivia. This is the first comic book movie where two main actors share the name Benedict, and one of which is playing a character that shares his last name.
What?
Sorry, shall I read that again?
No, I think I understand. Who is the other Benedict?
Benedict Wong.
Oh, yeah, right, got you.
So not only...
I mean, that's not very interesting.
I mean, I read that in the IMDb trivia and my mind was blown. I was like, hot damn, I cannot think of another comic book movie where two actors are called Benedict, and one of those actors shares the same surname as his character in the film.
No, that's true. That's such a weird thing to point out.
I feel like probably two main actors share the name of Benedict is enough. Having the caveat of, and then one of them also shares the surname, I don't know if you necessarily need that. I can't think of another movie where there's two Benedicts in the same, like, big roles.
Yeah, true. I also like the fact that they say this is the first one, because they're expecting a Doctor Strange 2.
Well,
and they realise that will be the second Marvel movie.
So, when it comes to criticisms for Doctor Strange, I feel like I've ticked off my main ones, except for the last one, which is Doctor Strange very much felt like, unlike Ant-Man, felt like its own movie. It felt very, like, almost self-contained, and I know it had Falcon in it, but it still felt very self-contained. Doctor Strange, to me, didn't feel like a satisfying film experience. It felt like a teaser for when we will see him team up with the Avengers.
I don't know if I agree with that.
I thought you might not, which is why I wanted to bring it up.
Yeah. I explain what you mean. Like, what bits made you feel that way?
The film itself, overall, as a whole, didn't feel like the most satisfying film experience.
Right.
It felt like predominantly majority of most of that film felt like the first act of a larger part, if that makes sense, and the conclusion was very, like, shoehorned in. It just, when I came out, I wasn't like, that was an entirely satisfying experience with a strong beginning, middle and end. It just felt like it was spinning the wheels ready. So now, when the Avengers get into like a real tight predicament and Doctor Strange pops up and magic's a solution, as an audience, we're not like, where the fuck did that come from?
I don't know if that's what it's going to be. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I 100% hope that isn't what they do, but it feels like what they position themselves.
This sort of ties in to the post-credit scenes.
Yeah,
because
I wanted to talk about those.
Yeah, I thought you would. Because that's what the scenes were sort of hit. Like, you get the obvious one, which is, I think, the last one, the one right after the credits, where they... Oh, no, wait. When did they reveal that it was an Infinity Stone? Was that in the film? Or was that post-credits? I think it was post-credits.
It might have been, yeah. So we know
that's obviously setting up the
eye of whatever it's called is a time stone, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
we've now got all but one, I think, of the Infinity Stones.
I don't want to discuss too much about this whole, like, where they're going with the Infinity stuff, because I'm very concerned about it.
No, that's fine. I just it just ties into the fact that
it's another one ticked off, right? It's another.
Yeah, but then I thought the more interesting one, was the Thor scene.
Did you?
Yeah, because that says to me that the next Thor film is going to effectively be a Thor Doctor Strange team up.
Okay,
which I'm fine with. Because I want them to do more.
Well, we've got
single
another
team ups.
Yeah, we've got another Thor film coming, right? Which is Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah.
We already know that that's Thor and Hulk. That's been announced.
Yeah.
Is it now Thor, Hulk, and Doctor Strange?
That's what I mean. That's what it's sort of implied to me.
Yeah, I didn't like the Thor one. It felt I liked that they addressed the cliffhanger from Thor: The Dark World, which is when we see Loki has taken on the form of Odin.
Yeah, see, this was confusing. I said this to someone that I saw it with.
Okay.
Because that's what I remembered happening, right?
Yes.
But what they say is Thor says our father is missing.
Yeah. So what I
but we saw Loki take over the role.
Yeah. So I mean, we don't know. I guess we don't know if Loki has either killed Odin or sent him somewhere.
Yeah, but then how does Thor know that Odin's missing?
I'm assuming. So here's what I'm not sure about, is where that credit sequence takes place. Does it take place after Thor Ragnarok, in which case Thor will find that out?
No, I don't think so.
Then, yeah, that's a massive, like, I don't understand what they're trying to do. This is why I didn't like the post-credit scene. I didn't understand what they were trying to do with it, because if they were trying to lead into Thor Ragnarok, it to me feels like Doctor Strange has to appear in it now, which I don't really want. I was entirely happy with the pitch that I heard, that was it's going to be essentially a road movie with Thor and Hulk. That's enough for me.
Yeah, but you're a miserable shit.
You're not wrong.
No, yeah, fair enough.
So yeah,
I mean, I'm just more excited. I like the idea of these. Like, I get what you're saying with maybe it's too much for that film.
Yeah,
but I like the idea that now we've got this cast of characters.
Yeah,
I think it does seem weird to have the set ones not have someone either pop up, even if it's only a minor thing.
Yeah, no,
like Ant-Man's, the Iron Falcon.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. So yeah, I think that was my biggest issue with the Thor credit sequence. Is one, it was referencing like a very, very tiny moment from the Thor sequel a few years back. That I do wonder how many people are going to kind of hit that reference.
Yeah.
And two, I just feel like it really wasn't clear what they were trying to achieve. Like, if they were trying to set up Doctor Strange appearing in the next Thor movie, or if they were trying to set something else up.
Yeah, but that's what I took from it. So if they don't, I'm going to be more confused.
Yeah. And then we had the very final post-credit sequence where we're essentially setting up the villain for the next solo Doctor Strange film, it felt like.
Yes, which is Modor.
Yeah, which again, this is what I think could be good, because if he is the big villain, they've done a good job of establishing his motivation and his character in this film. So now we can bring all that to him as a villain in the next film.
Yeah, it also deals with the thing where you were saying there's, there wasn't a punishment for the time thing, right?
Yeah.
I think that the implication could be that Modor is going to take that on and be like, he should be punished for the time thing. Like, he wasn't necessarily saying the universe punishes you.
But I am now taking that on as my responsibility.
So he's going to take it on and say he should have been punished for what happened. He's also clearly going to try and unfix Strange, because he now seems to be obsessed with killing all the sorcerers.
Yeah, no, definitely. So I'm kind of excited as a bit of a push, but I'm definitely curious to see.
Looking forward to?
Curious to see what they do.
Okay, curious.
I'm
looking forward to.
That's good. But yeah, I think that's pretty much everything I have to say about Doctor Strange. Don't know if you've got anything you'd like to add.
No, I think we sort of hit everything. All the points I thought we'd bring up.
Yeah. Out of 5?
I am going to give it... See, this is the kind of thing I should think of before. I want to say 4, but that sounds too high.
Does sound quite high.
Maybe a 3.5?
Okay.
What does that mean? 3.5. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good film.
Yeah, that's fine.
3.5. I'll go 3.5.
I'm going to go, me, middle of the road, average, 3 out of 5. It didn't do anything I wasn't expecting it to do. Oh, one thing I would like to mention very, very quickly, one bit that I did kind of think was pretty ballsy for this movie, was seeing the Doctor Strange dying repeatedly. And they do kind of, it is in a very safe space, because as soon as he dies, you immediately see him come back.
But it was pretty brutal the ways he would...
Yeah, exactly. I thought that was pretty bold.
Yes, I like that bit too.
Yeah.
I'd forgotten about that.
It also then bothered me a little bit that one of the very first scenes is a guy getting beheaded, and the fact that we kind of... I'm not saying we needed to see it, but we needed to see more than what we did see. When you then consider how much we did see of Doctor Strange getting killed, it felt very
but
odd.
that's probably not their fault. That's probably the fucking, people that give ratings.
Yeah, there's probably some censorship bullshit.
Yeah, where it's like, oh, you can't show a behead... Like, because they're always weird, aren't they? And you've got weird loopholes where you can show someone dying, but maybe beheading is considered too brutal.
You can only have, like, X amount of fucks or shits or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, 3 out of 5. average. Not the worst Marvel film, but a long way away from the best. And it does what it needed to do, I think. But I am very concerned about seeing how he plays with the Avengers.
Yeah. So if you've seen Doctor Strange, or have opinions on it, doesn't matter if you've seen it, just send us. It'll piss us off, but let us know anyway. You can tweet us at nerdonnerd, or you can email us at nerdonnerdpod@gmail.com.
I've been Liam Underwood.
I've been Jack Kempster.
And thank you for listening. Goodbye.
Bye.